Hey there, and welcome to the Catching Up with Casey show, where we talk about anything and everything that has to do with building cohesive, vision-driven teams. I am Casey Watts, school impact strategist and the host of this show. Now, if you are here, then you inevitably are an instructional leader who wants to make change happen, even when change seems impossible. And you can do that if you have cohesive, vision-driven teams that have done clarity work. They know exactly where they're headed and how they're going to get there. These teams have done identity work, and they've built their self and social awareness skills. And they have done collaboration work, and they know how to move beyond faux collaboration to get to true collaboration where change happens and where people get on board. I'm so excited to bring to you conversations that help you to do exactly that. The work that needs to be done to build cohesive, vision-driven teams. Now, with all of that said, let's dive into today's conversation. Well, hey, everybody, welcome to episode 85, I think is what this episode is. I'm seeing at least one person coming into the comments. I would love to know that you guys are here with me live. Please always know that if you don't catch this live session, it stays on YouTube. It stays on LinkedIn, and you can go over to my podcast on iTunes, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. You can find me. It is titled The Catching Up with Casey Show. And on that show, as I said in every introduction, it's where we talk about anything and everything that has to do with building cohesive, vision-driven teams. And tonight, we get to talk about why every leader needs an elevator pitch and how they can craft one that is relatable, that matters to people and helps people to actually know what it is that you do. Because here's the thing. We have this crazy habit of making assumptions about what other people believe about our roles. Every instructional leader, and I'm going to kind of like span a variety of different roles. So I'm going to be talking to you tonight about, yes, principals as leaders, district administrators, curriculum directors, assistant principals, instructional coaches for sure, instructional specialists, SPED teachers, counselors, you name it. All of these people that I've listed, we have a tendency to lay out our roles in front of people, especially at the beginning of the year when you're doing introductions, and we make assumptions about what people understand. And I want to tell you about 4 specific things that happen when we make these assumptions, okay? And if you're here with us tonight, you can just pop in the comments where you see this happening. And I also want to tell you before we get started, if you've already introduced yourself to your staff, guess what? This episode is still for you because you are going to have to clarify your role consistently. A one and done is not going to cut it. So here are some things that happen. There are 4 things that happen when we make assumptions about what people do or do not understand about our roles. The number one assumption that happens is we have a common role, and because it is a common role, we think, well, everybody knows what this person does, right? So think about principals, assistant principals, I'm going to say even classroom teachers. So when someone introduces themselves and they say, well, I'm a principal, we think, well, that's pretty common. Everybody knows what a principal does. But do they? Do they really? Or do they just have previous experience of what their principal, either as a student or as a teacher at a school, was like? Or do they just have this vision built up in their mind that maybe isn't accurate at all? The second thing that can happen is when we introduce ourselves, we create this elaborate, eloquent speech with lots of jargon that we think people will understand because they are in the education world. Again, not actually true. And what happens when we start this eloquent speech of listing our roles and responsibilities, our people start to tune us out, right? So they're not really thinking about what you're sharing. All they're thinking is, that sounds like a lot of stuff. Sounds great. Still don't know what you do. And then the third thing that can happen is we create, and this is very common for instructional coaches and instructional specialists specifically, we create these beautiful graphics, right? And these graphics might say, here's what a coach does, and here's what a coach does not do. Or our graphics will include like a menu of all of these different things we can provide to the staff that we work with. Or our graphic can include our core values. Like, these are the beliefs of the instructional coach. And I'm not telling you not to do that. What I am telling you is that people will typically take that. They might read the information, but they're not really digesting it. They are going to take it back to their classrooms or offices, whoever it might be. And that beautiful graphic is going to become wall art that gets forgotten, or it might even make it into file 13. If you don't know what file 13 is, maybe look it up. Actually, don't look it up. I'm just going to tell you, in my experience, when I say file 13, it's trash can. Okay, so I'm not saying not to create those beautiful graphics. In fact, I think there's a lot of value in creating those graphics. But what I am definitely telling you is that the graphic alone is not going to be enough. So tonight, we're going to be talking about what you can do consistently, regularly, to support those graphics that you're handing out. Okay, so the fourth thing that can happen is that we just simply lie about our role. And I don't really mean lie. I just mean, like, you're visiting with a stranger and they don't really know what I do. I can't even really explain what I do. So I'm just going to put a blanket statement on there. I'm just going to say, okay, I'm a teacher. Even if you are not a teacher and you have a different role, it's easier to say teacher. If you are an instructional coach and you get in a conversation with someone, and I'm thinking mostly about like, a stranger or something, and you say, oh, I'm an instructional coach, or I'm an instructional specialist, and they respond with, oh, so you're like a principal. Sometimes I have found myself saying, yeah, sure. Yes, that's exactly what I am, because it's hard for me to move past the point of that awkwardness where, I know we're not going to take time to explain it. If we're in an elevator, I've got a limited amount of time anyway, so I might be thinking it's not even worth it. And we don't want that to happen in schools. So if you're thinking about those four things that can happen, we have a common role, so we just breeze by explaining our role. We don't even explain our role to people or have an introduction. You have this eloquent speech that's way too detailed. You have pretty graphics, or you simply say lie. Not lie. I don't want to say that. You provide a role that people understand. Those four things happen, and I want you to think about the common theme, the common thread through all of those. And if you think about it, all of those things have the common theme of I or me. I or me. We are making ourselves the main character of the story most of the time when we introduce ourselves. And we try to spend time really clarifying the details of our role, but people can't hold on to those details because they're not really thinking too much about your role. So tonight we're going to be talking about how we can take a different approach. And again, if you've already introduced yourself, that's fine. Because what you're going to do is later this week or even into next week, you are going to practice this with someone on your campus. It could be a new teacher, because listen, your new teachers are coming in, and guess what? Like, I'm talking about first-year teachers. They don't have a clue what anybody does. They may think they know, but guess what? They have no idea. I have seen deer in the headlights when I've said, "Oh yeah, I'm the instructional specialist and I work in the curriculum department," and I just like rattle off all of these things that I do. It's too much for them to hold on to. Plus, I haven't made them a part of my story. So there's no connection as to what it is I can do to support them. Even when I say I'm here to support you, we can do this and this and this and this and this, it's overwhelming. So, let me tell you about some examples that I have heard or noticed recently of these things happening where we're making assumptions about roles, or where I have given what I thought was an elevator pitch, but it didn't go across the right way. The first example I have has happened like in the last couple of weeks. We're all starting the new school year. And with these beginning of year meetings, you have a lot of people introducing themselves, right? And I will not forget, just last week, there was a whole line of people that was getting ready to introduce themselves to new staff members. And I'm talking like 20 people about to introduce themselves. Okay. And every person that stood up shared the same thing. I am and I do this. I am and I do this. I am and I do this. But it's 20 people. And I got to thinking, man, people are number one, I'm tuning out. Like, okay, I'm not going to remember. I don't even know what you do now as it is. And I've been here for, however many years. Or as a new teacher, they're probably thinking about their classrooms. So they're not there with us in the moment. But imagine if someone had taken just a little bit of a different approach than the people before them. And we're going to talk about that different approach tonight, and it would have made a huge difference. Okay. And then I travel quite a bit for consulting. And when you get in the elevator, you have like one of two people that you come across. You might come across the person who is really introverted. They just want to go from the top to the bottom without any conversation. They want to be on their phone and pretend that you are not there. And then there might be another person who is extremely extroverted and they want to know your life story, where you're going, what you're doing, all the things. When I get into an elevator with an extroverted person, it's a fun time, but also I need to be prepared to explain what I do. So I'm on the elevator. I'm in New Jersey. I'm about to head to a school. He can tell that I'm like dressed to go to work or do something. And he said, "So what are you doing today?" I said, "Oh, I'm working with a school in the area." "Oh yeah, what do you do?" "Well, I'm a team alignment consultant." "What does a team alignment consultant do?" Here's what I said. "Well, I work with school leaders to help build cohesive, vision-driven teams." Sounds great, right? Like that's kind of a smooth talk right there. But it didn't give him any idea about what it is that I really do. He just kind of like said, "Oh, okay. Oh, moving on. Don't know what that is." That happens with our roles at schools as well. And I want to say it happens most, I feel like, with instructional coaches. So if you are an instructional coach with us here tonight, know that this is going to be so beneficial for you. So are you ready to dive into crafting an elevator pitch that is going to be relatable, it is going to be authentic, and it's going to make your role matter to people? Are you ready for that? If so, let's first clarify a couple of things. Do you actually understand and have clarity around your own role? Because if you don't have clarity around your own role and what it is you do and do not do, then it's going to be really challenging to create an elevator pitch. And you're not going to be confident when you are sharing what it is you do with other people. So first and foremost, get really clear on your role. I highly suggest creating a list of what I do, what I do not do, who I serve, how I support them. just jot it out. If you want to pull out your just like job description, you absolutely could do that. But I find that typically the job description doesn't always match exactly what it is that I'm doing in the role, right? And there's also that line on the job description that says other duties as assigned. Yeah, you're thinking about all of the other duties as assigned because that's typically what's going to be happening with your role. The other thing we need to get clarity around is your own core values. If you have not done the work of identifying your core values, you're going to want to do that as you're doing this work. Here's why. Your core values are going to show up in your elevator pitch, but your core values are going to show up in the work that you do every day with other people and how you interact with other people. So get really clear about your role and your core values before you try to craft an elevator pitch. Okay, we're about to dig in. I'm going to give you a framework for this. I want you to know that there are two things that we think about, or two ways we can think about this. There can be a lobby pitch and then an elevator pitch. If you are giving a lobby pitch, you've got like maybe 5 to 10 minutes to visit with someone and chat about what it is you do, what your role is. If you're in an elevator, you have 30 seconds to maybe 2 minutes, but it's probably closer to 1 minute. So we're going for the elevator pitch. And the reason we're going to go for an elevator pitch is because this kind of pitch or this kind of introduction will allow you to like weave it into conversations. When you're weaving it into conversations, if you're a principal, you're weaving it into conversations with parents. If you are an assistant principal, you're weaving it into conversations with all of the people that you support, including classroom teachers. If you're an instructional coach, you're weaving it into your coaching conversations. Or guys, we're just having these conversations by the copier or in passing. So your elevator pitch is not a lobby pitch. If you want to create a lobby pitch, like a way that you explain your role and share a story that goes with it, and you give a few more details, that's great. But then take that lobby pitch and narrow it down into an elevator pitch. Now, tonight, I'm going to tell you a framework for determining your elevator pitch. And there are 3 pieces to this framework. I'm going to walk you through these 3 pieces. It's going to be very simple. And then you're going to actually go off and do it. So here's the framework. 3 things. You are starting off with relevance. Then you are thinking about position. And finally, you're thinking about outcome. Relevance, position, and outcome. When we look at our relevance statement, we're starting with how what we do is relevant to the person that we are visiting with. We are pulling them in and making them the main character of the story versus making us the main character of the story. So initially I said we typically say when we introduce ourselves or we talk about our roles, we use statements like I do this, this is my role, me, me, etc. Right? So we're going to shift that language just a little bit, and we're going to make what we do relevant to the people in the story. I'm going to talk about that more in just a second. Then position. How are we positioning ourselves as not necessarily an authority, but how are we positioning ourselves as a support? How are we positioning ourselves to describe our role or like just pop in our title? And then finally, outcome. What is the outcome statement? Or in other words, what is it that we do to solve the problem? How do we solve a problem at play? Here's what I want you to remember above all, and I will restate this again at the end. People will remember how you made them feel, and they will remember the problems that you solve. We live our lives in stories, and every story has a problem of some sort. It doesn't have to be a big problem. It can be a small problem. Regardless, we want to make our people and their problems the main characters in our story, in our pitch. So here we go. When we are trying to bring relevance to what it is that we do, We are thinking about our colleagues as the main characters, and we're thinking about their problems or what the problems could be. And there could be a wide variety of problems depending on what your role is. So it could be that you are a SPED teacher and you are trying to collaborate with gen ed teachers closely, as that maybe isn't something that's been done in the past. So you might think about the pain points there. So like classroom teachers and what their struggles are and how you can come in and partner with them. Same thing with instructional coaches. Like, are you thinking about how you partner with teachers? Why are you partnering with them? What is the relevance there? What is a problem that you are helping them to solve? Principals, if you're talking to parents, what is the problem that they have? How do you solve that problem? So I want to give you some examples of some sentence starters. And let me also tell you, if you have subscribed to my email list, I'm going to be sending you this framework in Thursday's newsletter. So it's just a printable. It gives you some examples so you can take it and run with it. And I've got sentence stems included in that graphic. So here are a few different phrases that you might start with. My very favorite one that I typically go to, it's just become habit for me, is you know how. You know how. So think about that. You're starting with you, making them the main character of the story. Here's an example. You know how it can be overwhelming to implement this curriculum while also meeting the needs of all of your students? Well, yeah, they know that feeling. They've experienced that. They're the main character of the story. Okay, now say more. So that's one of my favorites. You know how. Here's another to make my role relevant or whatever role it might be. Sometimes as teachers, so principal, as assistant principal, instructional coach, someone might say, sometimes as teachers, it can feel like we're in silos. Or sometimes as a teacher, it can seem there are too many things on our plates. Okay. Remember, these are just relevant statements. So we're just thinking about that first piece of the framework. Another one could be, it can be challenging when. So it can be for maybe a SPED teacher wanting to collaborate with a gen ed teacher. It can be challenging when you're at a loss as to what to do to differentiate for your exceptional, like your gifted students, and also your students with learning disabilities. Or it can be challenging when you don't know what to expect when an administrator walks in. And then finally, I have one more, and this is a fun one too. I really like this one. Have you ever noticed how we hear a lot of people calling special education students theirs or mine? Yeah. Yeah. I have definitely seen that happen. Or have you ever been in a situation where you have a student that you know is struggling emotionally, but you're just not quite sure how to reach them? Yeah, been there. And that's where a counselor could come in, right? Okay, so we've thought about how to make it relevant. You want to position them as the main character in the story and allude to their problems, big or small. For me, I typically start as a team alignment consultant. I usually start with like, you know how a lot of people really get frustrated with team or faculty meetings and sometimes even hate team meetings. I say it and people are like, "Oh my god, yes. Oh, if we have another faculty meeting or if we have another pointless meeting." Okay, so I'm going to come back to my example in a little bit. So now we're going to move on to position, and this is super simple. So you have stated the problem, making them the main character. Now you're going to position yourself and explain your role really briefly. So you say, well, I am A. This is where the I part comes in. So I'm going to take maybe this one where, okay, this one right here. So sometimes as teachers, it can feel like there are too many things on our plates. As an instructional coach, right? As an instructional coach, well, what is it that you do? As an instructional coach, I come right alongside you so that we're going to get to that in a little bit. So as an instructional coach, I come right alongside you. Or let me go to, I'm going to go back to this one. Have you ever, where did it go? Here it is. Have you ever had a student who seems to be struggling emotionally and you just don't know how to get through to them, or you just don't know how to figure out what's going on? I am the school counselor, and I pull students along, or I pull students into my office, or I meet with you individually, whatever it is that you do. So that's where you state your role. What is your position? And then finally, this is the outcome piece. So you are identifying what the outcome is if someone partners with you, right? So I have made it relevant. I've stated what it is that I do, and here's why. Here's the outcome that we're hoping for. And this piece is really easy. So you just finish off with, I do this. So that's the position. I do this so that. The outcome is so that. So for me, as a team alignment consultant, I might say, you know how lots of people really struggle with team meetings or hate faculty meetings? I get a response or reaction. Well, I'm a team alignment consultant, and my job is to make this a different story for people, or my job is to craft a different narrative for people so that, or my job is to work with school leaders to create cohesive teams so that people really have productive meetings and enjoy going to team meetings, right? So relevance, position, outcome. So here's another. We're going to go back to this. Have you ever, for like a school counselor, have you ever had a student who struggled with something emotionally? You didn't quite know how to reach them or how to help figure out what was going on? They say, yes, absolutely. They might even share, oh, yeah, one time I had this student and this happened. Then you're going to position yourself, well, I'm the school counselor, and I get to work with students and work with you as the teacher to use some strategies that I have perfected over the years as a counselor so that students feel comfortable at school and you know how to meet their needs emotionally. Okay, and that's it. That's all there is to it, right? So let me leave you with this. Number one, yes, you are getting this framework in your email if you are subscribed to my email list. But most importantly, people will remember how you made them feel and the problems that you solve. So if you've introduced yourself and you've given them your role and that long list of things that you do, or you have shared this jargon of things that you do in your role, or you have simply stated a blanket statement like, well, I do this, and I just assume people know what that is. You can now pair an elevator pitch with that. Pair an elevator pitch with your graphic that you've created. As an instructional specialist, I have done that. I have created a graphic. I've even put it in teachers' classrooms this year. I put it in teachers' classrooms before they even came back to school. They got to school, they saw the graphic, it had some cute clips that they got to keep. And it said, here are the ways I can partner with you. It's not enough. So what I'm going to be doing continuously is going to them and saying, hey, how's it going? How's it going this week? They're going to tell me about that. I'm going to say, well, have you experienced XYZ? Well, as an instructional specialist, I get to partner with you as a thinking partner so that you're not feeling overwhelmed and you can do your best teaching. Let's talk about what that can look like together. So guys, I've given you how to create an elevator pitch that makes people a part of your story so that it's relatable, it's authentic, and it allows them to actually understand what it is that you do. I want you to pop in the comments what you feel like has been most useful. If you're not quite sure how to get access to my newsletter, I can send you a message really easily. Finally, Next week, I'm going to be talking more about clarity. So this episode, Why Every Leader Needs an Elevator Pitch, was really all about clarity. You bringing clarity to your own role for yourself and you bringing clarity to your role for other people. But next week, I'm going to be, not next week, sorry, 2 weeks from now. I lied. 2 weeks from now, I'm going to be sharing about instructional playbooks. I've seen a lot of people asking about how to create an instructional playbook. What do you include in it? So I'm going to help bring some clarity to building an instructional playbook. This is a register only session. It's not going to be a live session like this. So you're going to go to bit.ly/build playbook to register for that session. It is going to be in the StreamYard platform. So definitely go to that link. Come join me for that episode. It's going to be so much fun. And I'm hoping you walk away with clarity around how to develop an instructional playbook with your campus. Okay. I'm seeing in the comments, sentence stems. Love the sentence stems. They help me wrap my mind around how to make my role clear. Awesome. So those sentence stems, I'm going to include them in the email so that you guys can just toy around with it. It's really fun to create. And practice on your colleagues, practice on your partner, practice on your kids, practice with your friends so that people can get to know what it is you do and know that they can partner with you. Okay, guys, I hope to see you in a couple of weeks. We're going to be talking about that instructional playbook. Until then, I'll catch you on the flip side. Bye. Hey there, thanks for joining this episode. I would love for you to do me 3 solid favors before you head out. Number 1, subscribe to this show. I've got a lot of great guests and content coming up, and I don't want you to miss any of it. Number 2, share this show. Share it with your like-minded colleagues and friends and those leaders who are eager to build cohesive, vision-driven teams. And finally, connect with me on all the social media platforms. You can find me at Catch Up with Casey on Instagram, YouTube, and LinkedIn. Until next time, go off and create teams that leave people feeling inspired, empowered, and eager for more each day.